Well, good morning or good afternoon. And in fact, Yuri, I guess for you, it's actually good evening. Um,
Yeah.
this is another of our Anything app meetings. The focus today will be with first RV and ARV basics. We have a number of new people who've joined us, and I've put together kind of a tutorial on that, which includes really both topic one and topic two, um, which gets to the judging portion of it. Topic one, as you'll see, will really focus on the RV from the perspective, NARV, from the perspective of the remote viewer. And then topic two will focus on judging, independent and self-judging. So that's the plan for the next um, couple of hours. Now, associative remote viewing has really three phases to it. The first step is the remote viewing step. I mean, there is a remote viewing in really all the normal senses of remote viewing, where the specific tasking is describe and or sketch your, and we usually give a 6-digit number, feedback target. So the remote viewing is where you start, and then you have a feedback which is going to be given to you later. That's what makes it precognition. So in linear time, you do your remote viewing. Your task is to describe the feedback that you're going to see at a later date. So that's completely blind to you. Um, period. So as a remote viewer, and this is really important to get, that is all your task is. It's rather straightforward. You do your remote viewing session. Your task is to describe and sketch your feedback target, one that you're going to see in the future. Now, yes, there is a judging step in there, and we'll be talking about later, but from the viewer perspective, that is really ignored. What I'd like to do now is what I call a training target. We're going to do something which is similar to precognitive remote viewing, but as you'll see, it's quite different because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a target up front, but I want you to get a sense of how information might come in. But in this case, I'm going to flash a target to you um, quickly over the screen, as quickly actually as I can. Uh, um, and your job will be to use your senses, just to be there and be a witness, and use your senses to get shapes and colors, any other impressions that you get. Um, but do not use your intellect. Don't try to name the target. That's like a high end function. This is sort of like you put yourself maybe in the stage of a 2-year old, 3-year old without a whole lot of language, and you get a sense of something, but then you do write it down on a paper, and that generates a transcript. So um, get some paper and pencil. Um, let me make sure you all indeed have paper and pencil, pen. In the old remote viewing days, people had like special pens that they liked to use. They found out it didn't really matter, of course, but um, get yourself set up. Okay, I'm going to assume you are set with that. Okay, now in um, in okay, I believe. Okay, so you've got your pencil and paper. I'm about to flash this. Get yourself open and whatever you see, write or draw on your paper. Ooh, I don't know who that is, but that person should mute themselves. I can't see this. Scott, maybe you can mute them.
Yeah,
I'm
that
on
was
a small.
Greg.
Okay,
It got better.
thank you. I'm on a small screen here, and so I can't leave this open. Okay, did you see enough to put stuff on your transcript? Talk to me now. Tell me what did you put on your transcript? Were you able to see it, or was it too fast, or what? Talk to me, chat to me.
River rafting.
Okay, so you went to high level, so you saw enough to get river raft. Did you get any colors?
Just a pale blue.
Okay. Um, how about, but enough to see a river raft, and you got pale blue. I'm going to show it again. What did some of the others of you get? Did any of you see nothing and went by too fast and nothing sort of came in? Hey, this is a working group. Please talk to me. Talk to me. Okay, you got blue, wet, man-made, circular. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. See, that would be just the sort of thing that might come up quickly. Um, and how about some of the rest of you? Did any of
I
you get?
got I, I got large, black, veiny, massive.
Okay, okay, good, good, good. Did anybody like get nothing? Did they feel there was nothing there? Turns out it's hard to get nothing. Even when they flash these things so that consciously you see nothing, impressions come in. And it's kind of a rather interesting feature of human consciousness. I'm going to flash it again because when you do remote viewing, okay, often now obviously it's not going to be flashed in this way, but in a way it's going to come through your consciousness up. You're going to get some information, and then you might have something where it goes quiet, and then you ask yourself subtly for more information. So I'm going to do it again, and I bet now you'll get more information. So I'm going to flash this, flash it. Now, one of you only got blue before. Are you beginning to see other colors now?
Yes.
Okay. And I bet each of you are beginning to sort of get more and more information. And that's equivalent to going down into your subconscious again and putting on your transcript additional information. And in ARV, we typically only do one or two pages, but some people like to do full, if they've had training, full sessions. Um, but today we're going to stick to short sessions. Okay, so you understand the purpose of that training thing was to get you kind of used to getting flashes of things and putting um, perceptions down on your transcript. What I want to show you now, and I'm going to use this example a few times, is an example of an actual precognitive session. Turns out it was mine. So, and I'm doing that on purpose because there are things that don't get on the piece of paper that I'll be able to tell you about. Um, and it also shows um, kind of a style which I would like the newbies to use, and the people who've been around are already using it. And that is you always put your name and the date up in the right. Um, and then usually you get the coordinate in some fashion before you actually start. And that usually gets put at the top of the page. So you have it for reference. because we're going to do things that are called cool down, and you'll see that in a minute. And then the main transcript is below that. Most people draw a line. I draw a line with an arrow. I'm getting information from the future to the present. I do everything I can to set my intention to the feedback target, which in this case was here. So when I did this at remote viewing time, I happen to like to write the coordinate multiple times. But I don't do it multiple times for memory. In fact, it's the furthest thing from me wanting to remember it at all. I'm talking to my subconscious. And so when I draw a 9, write a 9, it has a very different feeling than the 2, than the 5, than the 4, than the 3, than the 9. And it's that motion, it's that feeling of the pen on the paper, even with the number, that helps me connect with the feedback. Okay? So then session, and everybody's sessions look different. And even my sessions from time to time look different. It sort of depends on how I move. But I do think it is valuable after you get quiet, that's called the cool down, that you write the coordinate again and then do what is sometimes called an ideogram, pictogram. You sort of do just a doodle, a fast doodle. It takes a second or two. And with that, you start your session. You write down the number, you do your little doodle, and then you get what you get. In this case, I got the word jumble. The other thing at kind of the broadest level for newbies is you're always trying to distinguish what comes from the subconscious versus the intellect where you're thinking. We know precognition is not an direct intellectual process. There's something deeper going on. It comes from the subconscious that's connected to the future. The intellect has a very hard time with that. Nevertheless, the intellect is around. And in this case, when I wrote jumble, I had the feeling that there might be water or clouds out there. So that is why I wrote this. And I wrote that on the right side, and that's where the analytical overlays go. They're called AOLs, and they're where you're getting intellectual information, which may or may not be correct, but your sense is that it came from the intellect, not directly from the subconscious. And then I went down again and did the coordinate and did another ideogram. And you can see this time what came up were life forms and motion, and somehow falling came in here, and I just don't remember. You see these little dots? Whoops. Boy, what happened there? Okay, these dots here are my touching this ideogram and trying to get more information, and falling may have come in there. And then one of my styles is every now and then, and I do this in about half of my remote viewings, and I don't remote view as much as I would like. I draw a box and try to imagine not only the picture, but also what's going on in there. We call it a photo site because there's sounds and things like that, which you can often get. I mean, it's obvious that there's motion in this picture, but if you looked at it as a strict snapshot, you really wouldn't get that, right? But there are also sounds here. I don't think I picked up, nope, I didn't pick up any sounds here at all, but other viewers doing the same target could easily pick up, sounds. And then I put these kind of shapes in here. So what I'm just showing you is, because we're going to be doing another example now of remote viewing, which is in fact now precognitive. This last one I flashed before. What I want to do now is have you do a remote viewing session. Get your paper and pencil, put your name on the upper right, put the date and time. The cue is describe and or sketch your, and now you have a real coordinate, 284,381. So this coordinate is really associated with the feedback target that you're going to see in about 4 minutes. We're going to do a short cool down, and then I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to get information that you'll put on your transcript, and then you're going to see your feedback target. So this is precognitive remote viewing. And what you're going to expect is sort of like before, but now it's going to come up from your subconscious, shapes, colors, impressions, all of your basic senses your subconscious mind can use to communicate with you. Okay, 284,381, and that should be at the top of your page. In fact, I often say the number out loud, feeling that the vibrations, and then I say it out loud at feedback time, that those vibrations will help me connect up with my specific feedback target. Okay, so settle in your chair, and everyone has their own style of cool down. I don't think anyone does it exactly the same way. I happen to like a very kind of simple breathing technique. And so why don't you just settle in your chairs? You've got your paper ready. Just take a few deep breaths in and out. I'm going to count backwards from 4, and when I get to 0, you can start. A few more breaths, slow and easy. Focus on your breathing. Four, 3, 2, 1. Describe your target. Okay, go down into your subconscious one more time. Get another perception or two, and then we'll end. Okay. Write end or EOS for end of session on the bottom of your page, and you've now finished your remote viewing session. Now, as a remote viewer, your next step would be to send a copy of your transcript to an analyst judge and wait for your feedback. And then you would do your feedback session, and that's it. So that's the remote viewers part of ARV. How did your sessions go, by the way? Feel pretty good? Any newbies? You all got information? It's actually very difficult not to get information, to keep the subconscious. It always wants to provide information. Okay. Here is your target. Okay. Right now, your feedback session has begun. As soon as you find out, and as soon as you're viewing your target, this is in fact part of the feedback session. Now, it's not the formal part. I want to talk about this quite a bit because I believe that the feedback session is in fact the most important session in ARV. And it's taken me many years to be able to say it that way, and I may even change my opinion. All of us are at the cutting edge of this. We're really doing this work together. But I now do believe that this is the most important session. Obviously, the remote viewing session is very, very important. You need to be the receiver of the information, but where does the information come from? It comes from here. So let's talk about this feedback. What we have is one RV transcript in front of you with the coordinate associated with this one photosite target. Call it a photosite because it's more than just a picture. There's all kinds of other information in many of them. Actually, this one tends to be pretty static. Maybe you can pick up that there's a little motion from the flags, but as you well know, many targets have sounds and smells and other things associated with it, and that's the meaning of photosite for us. So now the thing is, what do you do with this? So I really want to go through an example, continue to emphasize the importance of feedback, and then we'll have you do your feedback session and continue discussing this. So here's our same example, but this happened to be from the feedback session I did back in April. This session was done April 7th. I don't know what this is. I just noticed this. I think that's supposed to be a 4, or I made a mistake, 4-8. Anyway, this is the feedback session, and if you notice, there's new things. Can you see these check marks? Okay, I hope you can see these check marks in red. And I circled this because I was very, very happy with it. So I checked all the things which I liked. I actually put some X's here. There were no flowers. There was no picket fence. I marked white. I marked water and clouds. I mean, when I first saw this, I was absolutely delighted, of course, because there's just so much good stuff. And I felt real good about it. In fact, I even emphasized feeling real good about it. You know, I don't know if I cheered. I probably did. You know, yes, a thumbs up, that sort of thing. But you can see I got jumbled. I got life forms. I got motion. I got falling. It turns out, and as I've looked at this more and more, this I didn't quite know what to do with. I didn't mark this. This check mark is for the shape. My interpretation was the shape of the board here. Okay, I like that. I didn't like that I had multiple ones And that's why I wrote multiple question marks. I'm just telling you what I did, and it's not like it's perfect. Everybody it's going to come up with the way that feels right for them. The main point is I'm paying a lot of attention to it such that I believe this entangled with the remote viewing session. And in fact, now we're even paying more attention to it. It wouldn't surprise me if that helped make this session better. Thank you for being here with me. We live in a very strange world. This information is out there. And at remote viewing time, I got it through my subconscious. How did I get it? Well, obviously, we don't understand it exactly. It's got lots of theories. I have my theory, but I don't need to understand it. I know it happens. And more, I believe that this entanglement concept, and there's an entanglement concept in quantum mechanics, works the same way with information, almost similar to memory. It's like a future memory. Your past memories are stronger if there's maybe emotion associated with it, you've paid more attention to it. Same thing here. These are future memories which were shared at remote viewing time. That is the attitude. That's why the feedback session is so important, because that's the source of the information that you're sharing with yourself. What could be more sort of beautiful and self-contained to be sharing information about your own future with yourself? And now's the time where you know the truth. So that's an example of a feedback session. Now, notice what else I did. You see the red over the numbers? I went over the numbers again, feeling the motion, feeling the 9 and the 2 and the 5 and the 4 and the 3 and the 9. And it isn't like I did it real slowly. I just traced over it with my intention of knowing that my subconscious gets that. My subconscious understands the difference in the feeling of the different numbers, understands how all the sequence of numbers fit together so that it would connect up with the remote viewing time. They're entangled. Entangled happens to be the perfect word. Entanglement is sort of outside of time. They're just connected. And I just picked it up at the remote viewing session, but look what I'm doing here really helped it. And so all the red you see here is I happened, in this case, to go over, it looks like I went over virtually all the numbers again. Okay, so you get that? I mean, you don't just say, oh, great, I got a hit. You spend really, when it's a hit like this, very good, happy time with your feedback session.
Hey, Marty, can I comment?
Please.
Is that okay?
Please.
I'm looking at your transcript, and where you've got the multiple and a question mark in red.
Yep.
Those four pointy things.
Yep.
I don't see that as the their I don't know what it is, their board that they're on.
Let's call it a surfboard. Yeah. Okay.
I see it as the guy's life preserver. If you look at his in yellow there.
I see.
And then you've got, it looks like wood next to it. He's holding what looks like a wooden paddle. I see that as right on, because if you count the little breaks in his vest there, it sort of lines up with the same number you drew, and the wood paddle. But that's just the way I see it.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. And you make what is another excellent point, is all of this is just so personal and just as it should be. And we're going to get to judging, which shows that if you were looking at this and trying to evaluate it from a judge perspective, you probably would have done it differently than I did, because I didn't make that connection. And that's part of this, quote, game we're in. It definitely has individual aspects to it. Anyway, thank you for that comment. And yes, any of you, please, make comments and questions, as they come up. Okay, feedback, very important. And there's an interesting subtlety here. I like to write a lot of things down. A lot of people say you shouldn't write things down. I write things down because it forces me to say it pretty much how I believe it. Also, it's down there for the record because this presentation will be available to you. And here I use the word believe. Now, I'm trying to convince you that this is important, okay? You've certainly heard what I believe. What is important is what do you believe will increase this entanglement with your RV session. And it's then important for you to be self-consistent and do what you believe will help. And one of the things you find as you get into ARV over and over again is there's an issue which I really haven't talked much before, but I certainly have seen it in myself, and it's called discipline. I mean, here you are believing you should do a detailed feedback session, say, and yet you don't do it. Notice that, because guess what? I bet that creates noise. And so what's really important is to get within yourself what kind of things you believe are important for you to increase your accuracy, your hit rate, and then do them. Now, the things which I believe help and which I try to do all the time, and sometimes even I don't do it all the time, but I do believe saying the coordinate out loud helps because it sort of sets up unique vibrations with my voice. Again, it's not the number. It's got nothing to do with the number. It has to do with the way your subconscious gets it and then can share it and entangle it. I like this idea of retracing the coordinate. Now, you know what? Doing it once with feeling is probably enough. I like to do it multiple times. A lot of other people, a lot of great viewers, as a matter of fact, do it once. Now, I happen to believe that that's the communication. So I do it a lot of times. That's all. That's my approach. You'll come up with whatever approach feels right for you, but that gives you movement. And then pay attention. um, memory, you pay attention to things that you are consciously paying attention to, you will remember more, tend to get better entangled. So pay attention to what's going on. Now notice we're using sound, we're using touch, we're using visuals. Um, as I'm putting this presentation together, I'm saying, gee, why don't I do the same thing with taste? And many of you know Lynn Buchanan. He does multiple ARV with multiple tastes. I think that's a good idea. In fact, what I want to do one of these days is, in addition to all of this, I'm going to eat half of a chocolate candy of some sort, maybe a nice chocolate chip cookie, and eat half of it right before I do my remote viewing session, and eat the other half at feedback time. Again, working to entangle the taste. And I'm sure the same thing can be done with spell. So you get the idea, but just connect all this up in a way where you can increase the entanglement with your RV session. And as you're doing all this, it should be clear that that's your intention. And just the very fact that you're doing it makes it clear. So, you're taking direct action. And be happy. Enjoy this. All of us, really, we're living conscious beings able to get to the point in our lives where we can talk about something as mysterious and marvelous as precognition. Just enjoy the whole process. I think that'll actually help the entanglement. Plus, hey, if you look back at your life, why not have this enjoyment aspect of it while you're doing this? So consciously bring that into it. And then we must accept, I'm afraid, the reality for everybody I know, and that is this was a wonderful hit. This felt really, really good. But you're probably going to get a miss at some point in time. If um, it happens, right? Uh, Shit happens. You're not perfect yet. Um, and with misses, here's where I am, and I've been struggling with this for God, probably 15 years now. What do you do with misses at feedback time? Even with the hit, you're not going to change your remote viewing session. You're not going to change anything. You want to do a feedback session because I think it's important for the subconscious to know no matter what happens, it's going to have this feedback session. I believe you do it. You take a look and see if there was something in your protocol that maybe you didn't do properly. You might even be able to find a quote intellectual reason. You might find a feeling reason, or you might say, hey, I'm not perfect. You spend time with it, you try to learn something, and you move on. And now I believe you spend less time on misses than hits. You don't dwell on it. The hits are fun. The misses, no matter what you do, I used to say try to make fun out of it. And if you can, that's terrific. But mostly now my advice, and it's what I'm doing, is I just don't dwell on it. Go on to the next thing in your life and your next remote viewing session. Now, I'm staying with feedback here, and this is something which I actually discussed at App 2015, and we had Ulysses here, who is the author of this book, Syntropy, the Spirit of Love, and it's just another beautiful way of looking at the importance of the feedback session. He has, and in this book, and he obviously goes through it in a lot of details, but I think this is the essence of it. If time is going from left to right, a typical ARV session starts with the tasking. Describe and sketch your XXXX feedback target. That is can be viewed as a cause, sets up a whole bunch of events, like you doing your RV session. When you do your RV session at this time, what Syntropy says is that you are not only getting information and affected in a normal causal way from the past, but there are literally causes from the future which start from something which he calls attractors. Okay, so this is an attractor which is actually, you see, it's an attractor from the standpoint of forward in time. This RV session and information is being attracted towards this future feedback session. If you look at things as going backward in time, as information actually traveling backwards in time, which indeed I believe um, um, that there is a kind of an information transfer, the information is out there, goes backwards in time, then you can view it as being shared information. But in either case, there's a symmetry here with causes from the past and causes from the future. And these combine to give you your RV session. So this is the attractor, is your feedback session for information. Now think about this. You're not doing ARV. Anybody who wants to just have fun and do one ARV session, that's fine. But if you're really doing ARV, the only meaningful way to do it is over a long period of time, because period, and I think those of us who are here, who are part of app, we recognize that it's something which we really want to have kind of in our life for who knows how long, but for at least a while. We're thinking of it longish term. So that means not only do you have this session, but you have the next session and the next session and the next session. And so there's this sort of concept of what is this long-term attractor that might be influencing your long-term results. And also, which it would make sense, what's the kind of best attractor you can think of in each of your feedback sessions? Because they're really all out there now. There's this concept of the eternal now. If I can get information, even from the short term, from the future, that kind of means that information is out there at the time I'm doing my remote viewing session. So it's like it's always out there. And that's the eternal now concept, which I think, frankly, is the basic reality of what's going on there. The information is like just out there all the time, outside of space and time. But with this long-term view, as you go through this, you're getting older, you're living your physical life, um, getting wiser, and you've got this kind of attractor which you would like to have around all the time that's involved in this. Well, the syntropy concept basically says for life, what better attractor than love? And you know, it's amazing that this does fit so nicely with ARV. It isn't something which at first you would think makes sense, but you know, it really does. Because if you're going to have a future memory, why not have it associated with something positive, love, something happy? I love these things which I come up with, and then I always share them with you. But love is the strange attractor, using the word attractor, the allurement that holds the universe together. I mean, love's a pretty darn good one to use. And, you know, you using it more and more, getting this sense of love within you when you're doing this and doing all your entanglement, hey, it's hard to come up with something better to spend a lot of time with. So now, someday, I actually believe precognition will be recognized as an ordinary thing, uh, a natural, normal capability of human beings. Um, yes, it's going to have, in terms of the way people use it, a distribution. Some people will be better at it than others. There'll be an aspect of maybe genetics, but there'll also be, and I think a major aspect of how you work it, how much you want to improve your precognitive capability. But in any case, here's a quote I came up with, which, and these quotes always tend to come to me synchronistically as I'm working these things. But this came up: do ordinary things with extraordinary love. And this is Mother Teresa. And I believe someday precognition will be recognized as an ordinary thing done with extraordinary love. So this concept of bringing love into your ARVing, I really, really encourage. And then I will drop this, but you know, this basically is loving yourself. You're bringing this feeling in yourself. And love, you know, I've often talked about this as just being happy and bringing joy, but there's also appreciation. And maybe appreciation comes in during misses. You really appreciate you're part of a long-term process and you've got this capability and you want to improve it, and passion and positive and contentment. Okay. So the RV session, the feedback session, really does give you these opportunities to get into this really good positive feeling and entangle this information. Now, having said all that, let me see that okay, I didn't, I guess I have to go back. to the picture. So let me go back. I should have brought it here. Are there any questions on this? You obviously understand what I've been emphasizing. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Does it make sense? Talk to me. I don't know why. You know, it's so different in a webinar.
People are so quiet on the webinars, Marty. I'd like to
Yeah.
say something briefly. Just kind of a lesson that some of us I see were at New Orleans together, and as you remember, Joe McMoneagle said those first impressions that you get on your sessions, the first gestalts, are likely to be accurate. I think that's what happened on Marty's session, and just briefly on mine. You know, I started out, I'd do something that looked an awful lot like it was going to become a building or something very rectangular. But then I got an AOL of an arm, and so I started, went off into AOL land with the arm and no more building. So just, I don't know if other people want to comment on what they got, but that's how I sort of got off track. Of course, it was just a 2-minute session, but
Okay.
that happens, yeah.
Okay, well, we will in fact talk more about that. But what I'd like each of you to do now is do your feedback session, and then let's in fact get additional comments. But right now, let's, and this is typically how it will be. You will have your transcript in front of you. You will have the feedback picture in front of you. As you saw, I like to mark on my transcript. Some people actually like to keep their transcript pure, and they'll do a feedback session on the side. But why don't you just take a few deep breaths, maybe get a different color pen. Notice that's what I did, just so you can distinguish it, or, eventually you'll come up with your own style. And now mark all those things which were really good on your paper. And we're going to be using this during the judging. So actually, put a check mark near each of the things which were a match. And feel good about those. Okay, this doesn't have to take a long time. Okay. Okay, you're all done? I'll assume you are. You can also see why keeping your sessions down to 1 or 2 pages, if you're going to do this, which is what I, of course, recommend, is helpful. But again, I know the Lynn Buchanan and now Lori Williams CRV students do long sessions, and they actually go through this for multi-page sessions as well. Now, any other comments like John's about your specific sessions? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to embarrass you because I do think it's important to talk about this. Let me see if I can get your name. Okay, Lynn, your name came up on my screen first. How did you do? What was your experience?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I'm at work. I'm sorry. I have my office door closed.
Okay.
I think I did pretty good. The first thing I put down was like 4 vertical lines, and I wrote down maypole or barbershop pole. and then I thought, then I drew, like, since it was like a maypole, I drew like some curvilinear lines, and I put flyers or strings there because I thought it was maybe a maypole. It gave me the, like, it was like the first gestalt is what, and it's so hard for me because I don't know subconscious or whatever when I'm tuning it. I don't know, like, what's what, like, what's my imagination and what's,
If it comes up
and so it's
suddenly,
so hard to know.
wait, but let me just say this about imagination. What's wrong with imagination? If it's coming up
Because
from your subconscious, you put it down. In other
okay.
words, it came from your subconscious, right? It didn't come from your intellect.
Well, I have such an imagination. My mind will just keep, like, creating stuff, and I'm not really so. But anyways,
Okay.
from doing this a little bit, it seems like that. Yeah, it is true. It's like that first thing, and what I'm kind of learning is that when it comes into my mind really clearly, that's not it. But anyways, so then I put stripes and I put festive and then I wrote colorful, and I thought, oh, I'm just coming up with that because I'm thinking it's, going on in maypole or something. So I crossed that out, and then as it went on, I put down like two linear. Then below it, I put like two vertical lines, and I put one lone road and bright light green. So I didn't get any colors correct, but
did you get the
I think
building?
that's
Did you get the
no,
building, which is the
nope,
other major
didn't
gestalt?
get any of that. No.
Okay, remember that because when we do judging, everything you said is going to turn out to be relevant. Yuri, what about you? What was your experience?
I'm sorry, it's difficult to talk now for me. So
Okay, I understand. No, I mean difficult because you're in an environment where you can't talk.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, let's just talk to one other person, see what happens. Scott, how about you? What was your experience?
I didn't do this one. I'm working a little side project on the side,
Okay, no
supporting you
problem.
guys and monitoring it.
Patricia, how about you? I don't know who's making that noise. Is that Patricia?
Do you have me on speaker?
Yeah, yep, I hear you. Okay, who's this?
Tom?
Okay, good, Tom. What was your experience? That works.
Well, it was pretty good.
Okay, Patricia.
I was like John. I started. I drew a cube, and then that on top of a bigger cube. So I had the building, and it's interesting that when I do my ideograms, I've never traced over the actual coordinates. I do my ideograms and trace over it, and then do another one, trace over it, and it kept coming out that the man-made was the focus point. But then in the end, I drew two circles underneath it with spokes, like it was some kind of a vehicle, and then put vehicle and AOL that in the right-hand column. So it started out good, but then my mind put two wheels on the bottom of my building. So
Okay, but it sounds like your first gestalt was like a building. And do remember that, because let's go on to the next step now. You, as viewers, have now really finished everything the viewer is supposed to do. If you have no interest in judging, you would, in fact, not need to pay attention to anything I'm about to say, except it's of interest in that sort of thing. When you're wearing your remote viewing hat, which is both during the remote viewing session and the feedback session, you're the interchanging, you're entangling, that's it. That's your job, what we just did. Now let's go to the next step. Let's go to the next topic, which is this other part of ARV, which is the judging. Now, what is this? What is this thing which the judges have to worry about? Notice as a remote viewer, you did not have to worry about one of the main reasons we do ARV. And ARV is done because we want to use precognition on events which have multiple possible outcomes, okay? And the multiple possible outcomes are things like flipping a coin, which is 2 choices, but we've done this with horse races where there were 10 choices. We even once, in fact, a couple times did the Kentucky Derby where there were 20 choices. Much, much more difficult in terms of multiple possibilities. Our focus is going to be on 2 choices. Now, okay, so what we're going to do is work with binary ARV, and the binary ARV means that there are 2 possible outcomes, like heads and tails. We're going to do something different, odd and even, but just 2 possible outcomes. Now, where does the ARV come in that might involve judging? Well, guess what? We have 2 different possible outcomes. We associate one outcome with what we'll just call photosite A. We associate the second outcome with photosite B. Okay, guess why? As the viewer doesn't need to know any of this. The viewer is just going to describe a picture that he sees in the future at feedback time. Well, the tasker is always 100% of the time, everybody in the system knows that the tasker is going to show what actually happens, the actual outcome. So if what is associated, let's say heads was associated with photosite A and tails is associated with photosite B. Well, at the end, the person flips a coin, and if it's heads, they're going to see whatever photosite A it is. It's really that simple. But what the judge does is looks at the transcript and says, oh yeah, this really looks so much like photosite A, not much like photosite B, maybe a few random matches. Therefore, the prediction is what's ever associated with photosite A. Coin is flipped, it's a heads, and that's a hit. Now we're going to do this. So, I just gave you an explanation, which I hope you understand, but you'll understand it even more when we do it. But the key thing is we now have multiple photosites which a judge must analyze and evaluate and come up with rankings. And we're going to talk about all of that now. So what we're going to do is actually simulate roulette. We're going to do odd and even. And I actually found a website where I can get a random number between 1 and 36. It's that website there. And we're going to just use it once at the end after we make a prediction. So we're going to make a real prediction. And I'm showing you here the relationship between photosite A and photosite B really for instructional purposes only. Generally, nobody will know what is even and what is odd. The computer makes a random association, and we want to make this strictly precognition. We don't want to have any mental telepathy stuff that can get involved or any of that. So we're about now to do it, and then we're going to do some judging in what is in fact a way which is somewhat different than has been done in the past. Let's say it's different than Targ because it adds a quantitative feature and it adds features which emphasize gestalts, as you'll see. So that's what's ahead of us for this topic too. Okay, but we have made that association. Photosite A will be even, photosite B will be odd. Hopefully that makes it clear as judges how the judge is the one who actually makes the determination of what the ultimate prediction is. Here it is. But here's your tasking with the coordinate. So get a new blank sheet of paper, put your name, the date and time on the right. On the top, put 526894. So we're getting ready to do this. Settle in. Let's do a cool down. We're dropping everything else going on. Breathe in. Breathe out. Focus on the here now. You're intending to connect up with the feedback photo. Four. Three. Two. One. Describe. Okay, go into your sub one more time. Get another perception or so. Okay, that's 2 minutes. Why don't you write end or EOS for end of session at the bottom of your page. That shows completion. Now you're changing hats. In fact, I really suggest you stretch a little bit. You know, the remote viewing mindset, as you well know, is a very quiet receiving, mostly non-intellectual. I mean, you have to have enough intellect around to write things on a piece of paper. But you're mostly a witness is a reasonable way of thinking about it, where you're getting information via your subconscious. But now we're going to go into an intellectual mode, and it's almost like I'm going to have you do self-judging so that you can understand the process. Many of you in many of our groups, Lively and many other groups, in fact, don't do any judging. Someone else does it for you. That's called independent judging. Some of you are used to doing self-judging. But what we're about to do here is do it in a more analytical way, a new way. I'm stalling a little bit because I want you to get into your intellect. Okay. Now, I'm first going to start, and I've probably shown this 100 times, but it's a very good summary to get you a sense of what AJing is not, sometimes by going to the opposite. So here we have Ken, our skeptic, and he's asking, what is this guy's name? I don't remember his name. Does anybody know his name from the Dilbert cartoon? Anyway, he's our remote viewer, and we've got a skeptic here, actually, who is, okay, tell me what's in this envelope. And our remote viewer says it's a charcoal drawing of a woodchuck eating a small orange. Okay, it's a lot of information, maybe a little bit too much naming, but here's what our skeptic says. Nice try, you little fraud, but that's a long way from an ink drawing of a beaver eating a tangerine. Now, get the point here, because it's a rather important one. First of all, the drawing was a direct hit. Now, it's not charcoal versus ink, but pretty darn close, right? As a judge, you probably want to give credit for that. It's not a woodchuck, but a beaver. Animals, you know, even relatively the same size. You'd probably want to give some credit for that. So I'm taking this to not be a joke, but this is what you don't do as judging. You give a little leeway here. A small orange, I mean, that one is pretty easy. I mean, a small orange, pretty darn close to a tangerine. But you give yourself some leeway here. Okay, so we're now about to do it. We're about to look at the two choices, and there have been various techniques, from really subjective. You just look at them, rank them 1, 2, 3. We have been using the Targ system that I'll show you in a minute. But then there's been this CAST system, which had a lot of really good features in it, because it didn't kind of only count the hits. There was a component, and Joe McMoneagle used this too, and we're really going to use his approach. But the idea is, I mean, let's say you had a transcript which only had 2 perceptions in it, and they were both right, but it only had 2 perceptions. And you missed all kinds of other things that were potentially you could have said as a remote viewer. This computer-aided system approach has an aspect of that because it wrote down all the things that were possible to say. We're not going to use that, but we're going to use something different. But first, let's, and it's going to be a combination of McMoneagle and Targ. I'm calling it the MT system right now just because I don't have a better name. That's certainly not permanent. But here's a Targ system, which judges in most of the app groups have been using. There are other systems out there, which a lot of people are using. But it's a 0 to 7 system, and we've been using it for a long time, so we have a lot of data associated with this. And so I'm going to be connecting it to the Targ system. Now, 0 means no correspondence with the matches between the transcript and the particular target, the potential target that you're looking at, the photo site. And 2, after you do a few of these, and even first time in, you expect something by chance. I mean, a person says a color. Just by chance, the color could match. You might not have, in fact, made contact with the target, with the actual target precognitively. It might have been a guess. It might have been, who knows where it comes from, noise. So there could be a certain amount of that. That's 2. When you give it a ranking of 3, you are now saying, I really think you made some contact with the target, but it's just on the border. There are enough correct elements and incorrect elements, but not enough of the correct elements that you've really made good contact. But yeah, I think you made some. But we're really not sure. A 4 says, yep, we've made contact. We've got good correspondence with several, so more than one, several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. So 4 says you feel really comfortable that you've made a connection with the target. 5 brings in stronger words, good correspondence with unambiguous, unique, matchable elements, but you still have some incorrect information. But notice even the words unambiguous, which sounds like it should be an unambiguous word, as we as judges look at transcripts, we find sometimes it's hard to know what that is. But it's a much higher level. And you feel as a judge that, yes, this really is really clear and unambiguous and kind of a unique match. And elements, multiple ones. So that's a 5. A 6, you start adding everything from below, but also you start getting to where you're like naming the target and relatively little incorrect information. And a 7 is spot on. Okay. So that's the Targ system. Now, we've been using 3.5 as being wagerable. Judges often find themselves between a 4 and a 3, but they feel there is enough that, yes, there was contact made, and so we use 3.5 as our being wagerable for personal predictions. And then in all of the forms, one way or another, you do this for whatever your coordinate is, and you need to record what the confidence ranking is for the photo site A and what the confidence ranking is for photo site B. And that gets filled in. In WE now, that has normally been by an independent, by a self-judge. People have been doing self-judging in WE. However, as we've now found out, and we're actually starting to do, if you come up with a partner that you want to work with and he wants to be the independent judge, it is trivial to do because the remote viewer simply sends the 2 transcripts to the judge, period. He doesn't go any further. The judge then puts it into the WE system. And then they both wait for feedback, which then goes to the remote viewer. But the judge has access to it as well. So I'm really not going to focus anymore on we, but it's easy to use we for independent judging. If anybody chooses to do so, they just need to get a judge to go with them. Okay, now I'm calling this the McMoneagle-Targ approach because it brings in a quantitative way. Notice the Targ system was you kind of looking at it and getting a feeling on where you were on that 0 to 7 scale, but there wasn't anything quantitative. What we're now doing is quantitative at 2 levels. Matches between the transcript and the percepts. Actually, it should be precepts. No, percepts is good. Perceptions. Percepts is actual word. Perceptions. And then we're going to bring in Gestalt contact. And so I'm going to show you how we do that now. So here's the same example which you've seen before, but this example now works for judging as well, because what we're going to do is basically mark all of the perceptions and then give it either a 0, a 1, or a half. Now, if you were doing this on your own, and I know Scott is doing a technique which is very, very close to this, and he just keeps a total count going of ones and zeros. I'm not even sure he uses halves. So what I'm showing you here is my version. And again, judges tend to be rather individualized. You know, when you find your judge, you know, you might want to discuss with him a little bit on what he's going to be doing. But they are judgments, and that even includes how you do scoring. But this is what, for me, is the MT system. You go through every precept, every perception, and you decide whether it is a match at the level of a 1 or a 0 or a 0.5. So let's go through this and we'll see how there are still judgments involved. In this case, and notice, during the feedback session, the feedbacker does the same thing. So he could obviously talk to his judge afterwards. But here I am with my judge hat on and I see jumble. Okay, and we remember this picture. Certainly jumble fits. So that was an easy check. Here was water or clouds. As a feedback person, I always lean over to be good, but I would even give it a check here. And you should know, Joe McMoneagle said he tends to ignore the AOLs, and I don't. I discussed that with him at the time, and I told him I disagreed, and we agreed to disagree. So I will use the AOLs and give a check or a not check. Here are life forms, certainly a check. Motion, a check. Falling, a check. Those are, I think, pretty easy. Here, well, and then I did white, okay, was a check. Picket fence was an X. So that explains everything up to here. Now this one I found interesting. When I got my judging hat on, I had to do something with this. This was part of what I put into this rectangle. It wasn't an ideogram. It was something which I got. And after looking at it, and what you'll find is, unfortunately, when you know the right answer, it affects your judging. And I saw it potentially affecting it here because I wasn't sure if that should be these up and down waves. And was I leaning over backwards because I knew that was the right answer because this was a hit, or not? But ultimately, but notice that I questioned about that. I think another judge looking at that might give that a 0 or a half. I don't know, but I now as a judge said, you know what, boy, that looks like waves. They're big ones, they're little ones. I was willing to give it a 1. That's what I did. Okay, and then so this stands for sketch 1, which was wavy. Sketch 2 was this vertical, and as feedback, I took it to be the surfboard. Here, because of the multiples and all of that, I gave it a half. different judges would do it differently. I liked the comment earlier about it being the vest. Maybe another judge would give it a 1 for that reason. But the point here is the approach. And there are judgments that are being made as you go along. Then there was this sketch, which was separate. I just called it circle here. And I gave it a half because, again, to me, it looked like the waves. I almost gave it a 0, but I gave it a half. I might have, I don't know. That's what I did. And then this was actually something, see, and almost as a person who did this, and this is sometimes why people like to do self-judging, I'm the only one that knew that I actually got this as a perception. And so I gave it a 0. I just didn't see that anywhere, anything like that. So bottom line, in terms of matches, there were 11 perceptions and 8 matches. Now, let's talk about the gestalts. So here are the matches, 8 out of 11, that gives me 0.73. Gestalts, the way Joe does this, and I just picked it up exactly how he did it. I thought about doing it somewhat differently, and I decided, no, let's just use this approach, which permits 0, 0.5, or 1. So as a judge, you have to decide, you have to make a judgment on whether or not that picture gets the major gestalts, basically captures all the significant ones, or enough. I mean, for me, a 1 is going to mean if I miss, 1 out of 4 or something like that, I may give it a 1. Some sort of rounding off kind of concept here. If I'm sort of not sure that the gestalts were really grasped, then I might give it a half if there were some, and might be 0. So, you just sort of missed all the big picture gestalts. But here, I think, between the motion and the life forms and all the things, I gave it a 1. Now, okay, so I have the two aspects. And notice that the gestalts, for the first time, gives you this ability to get a 0. If I had only had 2 things on my thing and they were both right, I would have gotten a 1 here. But if I happen, I got 2 colors, say, even I'd feel uncomfortable even doing that. But nevertheless, the point is that I would get a 0 if I didn't get the gestalt here. Now, here's the final arithmetic, and all it is arithmetic. The matches, and this is based on what Joe does, the matches count as 50%, the gestalts count as 50%. So the total confident ranking is the matches plus the gestalts divided by 2, and then I bring in the Targ system simply by multiplying by 7. So there's nothing complicated here. 50% matches, 50% gestalts, that's where the 2 comes in, then you multiply by 7. Well, that turns out to be the same as the M plus G times 3.5, which in this case turned out to be 6.1. So quantitatively, if I had just used the gestalt, the Targ scale, at the time, I think I would have given that a 5 or a 6. I mean, it really was a good session. It was perhaps the best session I've ever done. And quantitatively, this got right into the same place. So I was quite happy with it. And I've used this now probably only a total of about 5 times. And it's been pretty good. If anything, it was a little bit higher than I liked. And I'm the judge. I use this as a guide, and the numbers a couple of times that I've actually put into the Wii system tended to be a little bit lower. Now, maybe that's because I tend to be conservative, but every judge is different. However, what we've now done is I've now shown you a quantitative way to basically use the Targ scale. And I think it's very valuable because it's not kind of wishy-washy. So let's do it. I think this idea of a cool down is for a different reason now. This is just to get you focused on, this is more for getting your attention. In fact, I may redo this slide even before I save it and distribute it. To add, what you're doing now is just getting yourself focused in with the judging hat. So you can do that now. Just take a few breaths and that's it. So take your transcript. This is photo side A, and first do the matches. Now the reason for doing the matches first is you will automatically go through every perception and you'll note whether or not it's Gestalt-like, and you can put a G next to it, which is what I did. I wish I could look over your shoulders, but you guys doing this, and there are going to be some judgments. They're not always clear, but and next to each precept, you probably want to put either a 0, a 1, or a half. Now, it's always good as a judge to know there are two of these. Under the ideal circumstance, there'll be a good match with your one transcript with one of these and not a good match with the other. But that's separate from what you do. I have seen many cases where both of them will turn out to be 4s, or one will be a 4 and one will be a 5. It's amazing how sometimes that happens. So, you know, you're doing this mostly intellectual, you're just making judgments now in a quantitative way. In fact, why don't you guys, and this will also tell us when you're done, in the chat box, why don't you put, you know, maybe PSA and then put your CR equals. So write it down, claim it, just so I can tell where you guys are. Or if you want to wait to the end, you can do that. But we're not going to go on to the next one until you have a specific number for this one. There's the equation again. Confidence ranking is M plus G times 2.3. Anybody having any problem with this?
Marty, can you put the formula back there
Yep.
too?
Yep. Right there.
Yeah, just back and forth there, thanks.
Yep. Yep. So M is the total number you get of matches, adding up the 0, halves, and 1s, divided by the total number of precepts. Now, some people just do checks and X's, and then they just count the checks, but you have to sometimes mark a check with a half.
So James put a question in the
Okay,
box there.
Let's see.
Can you suggest some criteria to look for?
In terms of what, James? I mean, you look at each what's called a perception. You know, when you get them, and you sort of saw what a perception is. A word would be a perception. Sketches, usually one sketch is one perception, but sometimes the sketches are complicated enough. You know, like if somebody drew a building with windows, a rectangle, but something that'll look like windows, that might actually be 2 perceptions, and you might give 2 check marks and 2 points for that. But that's a judgment. So I don't quite know what you mean by criteria. But, you know, it's got to feel.
Yeah, what I mean by that is color, shape, or flow is all part of the criteria.
Absolutely.
So what? Yeah.
All of those.
But okay.
All of those. In other words, if you put down a color, you know, and in this example, if you put down red, that's a check. You put down yellow, that's a check. You put down, now here's where judgments come. Obviously, if you put down black, it's a check. What if you put down brown? Is that brown? Is that, if you put down rust, that'd be terrific. But I don't know, my eye, I don't quite see brown, but you understand what I'm saying. The stuff in the base there might, in fact, be brown. And maybe you'd give it a half, or maybe you'd give it a 0. But certainly, if you wrote down a color, you match it to the colors in the picture. And flow would be terrific. Movement would be terrific. You know, some targets, some people get stationary, no movement, so that's a 0. But everything that you put on your page, every perception will have a 0 or a half or a 1 associated with it.
Hey Marty, how do we deal with the sketch? Like, does the sketch itself get points?
Yes. Now, a sketch is worth at least 0, a half, or a 1. If it's a complicated sketch, and the example I gave, going back to the building we saw, let's say a person draws a rectangle. For the building, you know, that by itself would be a check mark. But let's say they did a rectangle with rectangles inside it. Oh, now they've got something that looks like they may have caught the windows. So you might also give a point for the windows. So sketches tend to have sometimes, you know, more information in it than maybe just a color, for example, or just a word. You understand? So I think that's part of the judgment. I mean, you know,
okay.
Yeah, okay.
We got a bunch of scores here.
Okay, yeah, I'm not, I should see that. Okay, good. Okay. So these are the final MT scores, and good, I'm looking at them. Got 3. Now, are those for the CRs? Yes, there's a CR of 1. I'm going to assume yours is a CR of 1.5, and that is what I should ask for. CRs of 1. There's okay, so you did, Bob, you did that. Okay, now go to the gestalts. Now go to the gestalts. John got a 4. Very good, John. In fact, Scott, would you mind taking down the CRs so then we can do the CRs for photosite 8 and the CRs for photosite B? So
okay.
Make a table of it, you know, because we won't have easy access to this. So I see a 4.16. Bob is still getting the gestalt. James, was yours for everything, or was that just for the M, the matches?
I don't know what I'm doing here, but
okay.
Obviously, yeah, I'm checking out the color and shape.
But did you mark everything on your page with either a 0 or a 1 in terms of what was there?
Yes, pretty much it's a 0, 0, and 1 is the shape and flow. 2 things.
Got it. It did match. It matched that.
Mm-hmm.
And how many precepts did you have? 3 or 4? And did you do the division?
Okay. Precept,
no,
the drawing, get start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got this triangular shape. The other one is flow, but it's water. but not the volcanic flow.
But you got flow, and you
Yeah,
got
and then
sort of a
triangle.
shape, and you got a triangle, which is a good match of the shape. So that's two. I'm sorry. Who am I talking to?
I'm James.
Oh, James, right?
James. Okay.
James Park.
So James. So it sounds like you got at least 2 points. And how many total perceptions did you put down on your page?
I put 4, which is think it was ocean flow.
Okay, so your M would be 2 divided by 4. So you have an.
Okay.
So I just want you to understand it. See, it's not that hard.
Okay.
So you got 2 matches out of 4. So your M is 4. Now let's talk about gestalts on yours. I'm not looking at it, but I'm assuming, did you put the word flow, or does it show flow, or what?
It just show, I put the gestalt
Okay.
flow, not word.
So I would say that's at least a G of a half. And I don't know if you feel you want to give it a G of 1. Why don't you just give it a G of a half? So that's 0.5. So 0.5 plus 0.5 is 1 times 3.5 is 3.5 G. So yours is a 3.5. Why don't you add that to your table, Scott?
Yeah, I will. There's a couple of people who haven't given a complete score yet.
And
like
Deborah
and Bob.
8.
Yeah, can you bring the formula back up real quick?
Yeah, sure. M plus G times 3.5. Okay, and I can leave that there, I guess. We know the picture now. You sort of get an image. Deborah, you had 15 perceptions, 8 correct. So that's a little over 0.5 for that. So now you just have to decide, did you get the gestalts?
Yes, you know what, do we not worry about that there was some wrong data in there? Like, I definitely got strong gestalts here, but I just had a person in it as well.
No. In other words, that you would get in the matches. In other words, that's why you only got 8 out of 15, right? Because when you went to the person, you gave it a 0.
Right.
But here it's, did you basically get the gestalts correct? Not,
yes.
Did you miss any? And here with movement, flowing, speed, red, splashing water, I'd have to say I would say that qualifies as a G of 1.
Okay.
So just do your arithmetic. I think that's how, is that your understanding of how Joe did it?
Yeah, right. So
Yeah,
this is it counted there.
He wouldn't look at the gestalts that were wrong, like a person, and take anything off. The G of 1 would mean, yes, you got the gestalts.
Yeah, you got the major gestalts.
That was my understanding too.
So the matches are more individual, and the gestalt is more of a global understanding of it? Is that how I'm...
That's right, because that's what the subconscious most of the time, and again, it isn't true of everybody, and that's why I allow the whole transcript to bring it in. It's the big picture. Things like movement, flowing, speed, red splashing. She got him. She didn't say outside, but outside would be another kind of gestalt. Mountain-like, that kind of thing would have been another gestalt that would certainly fit here. So
we could finish Bob. Just need a
Okay.
score from Bob.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
Bob gave 4.
I put it in there, 4.15.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah. Now in the Wii system, I would always round down to the lowest CR, because the way Wii is set up, it only gives you it gives you choices like 2, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.55, that sort of thing. So round down. Okay.
And then Deborah. Okay, so Deborah got a 1 for the Gestalt and a 8 out of 15 for the matches.
Right. So she can undo that arithmetic, or you can. Okay. So
if someone could do the arithmetic for me.
I'll do it. Sure.
Okay. But it's going to be roughly 0.75 times 3.5. Yeah. It's going to be almost a 5. If you look at it as a CR, Deborah, you've done enough of this judging. Do you think 5 is about right?
I would say, maybe, I think I'd give it a 4.5 on a CR scale.
Okay, and that's agreeing with everything that I've seen so far too. If anything, and it's not like it's a lot high. So I think it's pretty darn good, but it's a little high. And then you can use some judgment compared to the 2. But if you like it, you leave this number versus the other. Okay, let's go to the next one. I think everybody is done. So this was photo site A, and now you sort of wipe your memory bank clean, and totally independently you do photo site B. And these pictures, by the way, were chosen randomly from the set. So okay, now you choose photo site B, and it's a possible target, and you judge it the same way. So let's just do exactly what we did before. I gotta take this. Hello? Ooh, that's noisy. Okay, and then put the CRs, just the final CR in there if you have any questions. Okay, so Bob got a 1.35. I'm looking at this, and since the previous, well, let me let you do your thing first, and then we'll talk. So that took you, Bob, what would you say, 3-4 minutes to do the judging?
Oh, the first one took longer just because I was figuring out the
exactly.
I've never done the Gestalt score and then multiplied them, but yeah, once I figured out what you guys were doing, it's
Exactly. And that's this, you know, sure, you're making an investment of time, but, you know, we certainly think it's worthwhile time.
And it does show like some overlap because, you know, you'll see a couple that, I'll wait till everyone else is done before.
Yeah, exactly. Here, I'll show you the formula again. Okay, good. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ron. Okay, good. And Scott, you can do the arithmetic on Deborah's, but it's pretty clear it's going to be low. This is beautiful. It's almost like a setup for what I'm about to say next, but let's wait. And you've got a table of some sort going, which is now going to show numbers on both sides. I love it. Lynn, thank you. Thanks, John. See now, thank you, Lynn. No, let me just say this. I don't know what your first score was, but you now have, oh, she left. But each of you will now have two different scores. And so just based on what you know, forgetting everybody else, you're in a position to make a prediction. So, you know, if it were over 3.5 on one and under on the other, then you would go in that direction. Or you might just, and it looks like I'm seeing that with some people going in different directions. Okay, thank you, Ron, 4.375. Scott, is that everybody now, or are we still waiting on someone from the front? Oh, there's Dava. That was funny with your lava comment, wasn't it? I think we had that before you said that. What? Wait, you did 5 out of 7 perceptions. Here, I will do some arithmetic for you. I will just take my calculator here and just do this out loud, which is good. See, everybody is learning. I'm doing 5 divided by 7 equals. So your M, the variable M, is 0.714. Oh, you drew it fairly good. So you didn't count your drawings as perceptions. Add your drawing as a perception, and I would say for now, unless you have some very specific, like multiple rocks, so first you get it because you have general shapes.
Yeah, no, I had the 5 out of 7 matches of the words.
Okay.
That I scored.
And what about?
And the drawing I would count as a perception. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And the only
Okay.
issue would be, again, I can't look at it, but would it be a G of
That's
1
Gestalt or not.
or
Yeah.
Gestalt? Is it? Well, no. But even as a match, wait. As a match, you could, if the drawing like had multiple stones in it or something like that. You know, it had a rectangular shape, but what if it had 3 or 4 rectangular shapes, and one of the rectangular shapes was horizontal and the other ones were vertical? You might give it an M of +2. In other words, 2 check marks. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is so new to me. I'm sorry.
That's why we're
yeah.
here. That's why we're
Okay.
here. And that's what I'm saying. It sounds like it's at least an additional. It counts as a perception. Now the only question is, does it count as 2 perceptions? Did you kind of feel that you got rectangular, but you also got the orientation of the rectangular?
I got the orientation. It looks like vaguely could be rocks.
Okay, so you might want to give yourself 2.
Okay.
So you might want to say, so as matches, so you might want to say you really did 7 out of 9.
Okay.
So it's important for you to understand the pictures are perceptions, came up from your subconscious. In fact, they're the best non-intellectual when you get visuals. So I will do 7 divided by 9 for you.
Thank you.
So your M is 0.78.
Okay.
Now, what about the gestalts? Do you think you got the general gestalt of this?
Yeah. I don't know. I think so.
Yeah. If you got the shape, you know, where I don't like these things to go much more than 2 hours, or I could actually see your screen, but let's not do that. But I think you're right. If you have the general shape right, and just from your words, it sounds like you do, and that there are multiple rock-like shapes in there, I would give you you have 1.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then if I take +1, so I have 1.78 and I multiply that by 3.5, I get 6. So yours is 6.2. So we'll put you down for 6.2. So I think if you sort of get it now. I don't want anybody
to. I'm going to review this.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. But
it's the equation that I'm a little, you know, but this is not something that I'm good at. So
math, yeah. Okay. Well, right. But once you understand the M and the G, that's where the judgment comes in. Then it's M plus G times 3.5.
Right.
So, okay. So you got a high score. So John knows. Okay, I think everybody. I'm going to assume everybody is done. If you're not done, you know, put it in the chat box, and Scott will add it. But John Knowles just wrote something which is very interesting here. He's got 2 high confidence rankings. Notice each of you now should have 2 confidence rankings, a CR for photosite A and a CR for photosite B. Now, if one was much higher than the other and over 3.5, so they were different, then it's clear that's what you're predicting is going to be your feedback target, right? Because that's the good match as a judge. And so, Dava, I don't know what your first score was, but
0.5.
Oh, okay. So you're clearly predicting photosite B, and I don't remember if it's odd and even, but that association is there. That's what you're predicting. But I saw some other people get good ones on photosite A. So there are multiple points to be made here, which we see all the time. It's rare that if you have 5 or 6 people doing predictions that they all go the same way. And that's because we do have misses mixed in with hits. And as a group manager looking at all of this, You now have to make a judgment on what you think is going to be the ultimate one.
I
Separate.
sent you this table if you want to look at it and pretend we're a group manager.
Yeah. Okay. You got it on your screen?
No, I emailed it to you, but we could do it on
Oh,
my
okay.
screen.
No, let me go to my. Let's do that. That's good. Let me see if I can get my Gmail. No, that's good.
No, it's not there. Let's see.
Need some simple numbers? No.
No.
Who'd you mail it to? The fact that I'm not on my main computer. What did I do?
Send it to Gmail.
Yeah. No, I'm getting it. It's just slower. Here, let me do it again. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a screenshot. JPEG.
Okay, so here we've got it.
You click on it, it'll get really big.
Oh, okay, perfect. So now as a group manager, and that's the way we work in app. App is all grouped because we do believe the group process is important. We would sit here and I see 3/4 on the volcano. I see 3, well, and 1 3.5, which is sort of on the margin. The highest one is a 6.2. What I know and what you know is that some people are going to get hits and some people are going to get misses. So we get to experience both of those with different people here, right? Because it's going to be either one or the other. It can't be, it's either going to be an odd or an even. And as a group manager here, I don't know what I would do. I might be tempted to pass. What would
Yeah,
you do, Scott?
It's 3 on each side.
Yeah.
And
My 2.6 should be 4.6, so I got both sides as I often do.
Oh, that's true.
so
Yeah.
then I lean a little bit towards Stonehenge side 2,
Right.
photo B.
Okay. And also the highest score.
Am I being overconfident with that high score? I don't want to take the team down.
Hey, you scored it according to the system, and that's all you could do. Okay, so we're not wagering any money on this. So this is strictly for training and learning, and hopefully you're getting all that. So let's say it's photo site B. So we're going to declare, but you see, in many ways, it doesn't matter for training. Each of you did your own, and it's great. It's almost like we can both see the reality of this. Which means you get things on both sides. Wait, I'm going to have to close my chat box here because it's taking up too much room. Let me do that. And so we're declaring photo site B. Photo site B is odd. So we are predicting the roulette wheel will be odd. As a group manager, each of you individually, those of you who got a good match to the volcano, actually had a personal prediction, what we call a personal prediction, of even if it was 3.5 or more. And those of you who are on the other one, the Stonehenge photo site B, then you have a personal prediction of odd. Now, let me go to this side and we'll do it. So this is, I found this a very interesting site. I think I'll have reasons to using it for other things as well. So this will let you generate as many random numbers up to 10,000 as you want. We want to generate 1. It'll give me an integer between 1 and whatever number I want up to, it looks like, 1 billion. We want to go between 1 and 36. I think most of you are familiar with roulette, but it's got 36 numbers plus 000. We're not going to worry about 000. and I'll just put it in one column. So when I click this, one number between 1 and 36 will come up, and it'll be either odd or even. Get it? I mean, okay, so let's do it. So this will be the roll of the roulette wheel. Odd. So
Yes.
the group manager and those who said odd, including you, Dava, got a hit. Okay, and those on the other side, they get to experience a miss, even with fours. Now, someone like John, and this is important to say too, John actually would have been a pass since he had fours on both sides. He really, let me just see if I can go back to that table. In terms of the way we think about these things, oh, I think I lost it. But anyway, you remember the table, the table, I think he was the only one that had two numbers that were over 3.5 and close. So, okay.
Yeah, he was.
So we just did it. We made a prediction, and it turned out to be odd. And now, what's the next step? The next step, and I wrote myself to pause here because I now want you to put on another hat. And I think there's a way I can pause the screen so you'll not see what I'm about to do, because I don't want you to see. Now you're putting on your feedbacker, which is the remote viewer hat, but for feedback. So you're in the feedback mindset. Start getting into there. Why don't you guys get quiet, and I'm going to get the correct picture, and that's the one I'm going to show you. And I can do that by pausing my screen. There we go. Okay. Okay, take your few breaths. This feedback, I really want you to get the idea and the feeling of doing it, whether you had hit or misses. You're now different. You're now in the feedback mode. You don't know if you got a hit or miss. I want you to imagine that this is what you're seeing as your feedback for the first time. And you should be seeing the screen now.
Yes.
And so now do your feedback session. Which means emphasize the hits. Feel really good about the hits. And I'm sure you'll have other kinds of thoughts. Like I'm sure John's having thoughts now about how come I always get information from both, and things like that. And that's fine. You've got those. But you know, when this works and you get the hit, you're the ones, and I think there were 4. In fact, John, you ought to really view yours as a hit too, from the perspective of what to do, which is to really keep emphasizing it and get the sense in yourself, all of you that got the hits, that indeed you shared information with your earlier self at remote viewing time. You entangled correctly this information. And boy, doesn't that feel good? I mean, that's not a capability you would have perhaps imagined, in your younger days. But here it is, you're actually doing it.
And then even the people who got a miss may find, new things in their transcript that really match the Stonehenge target. Now that you know that's the one,
That's right.
the real target.
And feel really good about that. And know that nobody is perfect all the time, not even Joe McMoneagle. And the other stuff we tend to call noise, it's there for some, quote, reason. And what the doing, I was going to use the word training, but see, from now on, you know enough that the training, in my opinion, is largely self-training. You are going to be doing this, you're going to be paying attention to everything, and as you do and as you get more comfortable with doing the feedback sessions and the sense of entangling, you're going to just get better at it. And you are going to work out ways to get better at it, not me. I frankly have told you pretty much as I know at the level of doing ARV well. Okay, have you finished your feedback sessions? Typically, you enjoy them. How you feeling, Dava?
Oh, excellent.
You got it.
I reward myself with a Bloody Mary right after this.
Okay. And I don't know the names of the Scott. Who were the other ones that got good hits?
RVT and Greg.
Okay, you two guys feel.
Dava and Greg are on fire since New Orleans.
Okay.
Between Lively and Chicken Dinner and the actual stuff in the conference.
Okay, that's great. And okay, so they're feeling well. Now the people who got misses, we just have to move on. I know that you've all had hits. I think they're all. Is there a brand new newbie in there? I mean, John obviously has had plenty of hits.
Greg and Dov. Well, Greg's pretty new, but
no, on the miss list. Any newbie?
Most people were passes.
Well, look, and there were some passes. Look, the thing, if you are on that list and you're just not feeling like this was great, just stick with it. You will, right, entropy in the normal sense, but this has a lot of, Stonehenge has a lot of interest in it too. It's actually a pretty good match because it's got, what do they call it? Numinosity. A lot of people have seen that. But my point is about those of you who do have misses, you stay with this. You're going to get your good hits and excellent hits, and you will learn from the hits. There's something to learn from the misses too for each of you. Your sub is learning. It may be just learning the scoring system. This MT system is what you were supposed to get out of this. I don't know, but I do believe it's all just the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so what I want to leave you with, there was one other quote, and again, I get these quotes just when I'm working on this stuff, just by being on the internet. People send me quotes, people send me things. This one I thought was interesting on the bottom. The proper use of our intelligence and knowledge is to effect changes from within to develop a good heart. That's a quote from the Dalai Lama. How do you like that? And the heart fits in with the love and everything we're talking about. And then I want to leave you with this last one, which is how I'm feeling all of this will fit together for hopefully all of us. Healthy, wealthy, and wise. And I really believe that ARVing is a path to all three of those. Okay, with that, any other questions, comments?
Hey, Marty, can you hang out for a couple minutes after I have a couple questions for you unrelated to this?
Yes, sure. I'll turn off the recording after we finish this, and then we can talk.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This was really wonderful.
Okay.
I'm going to review it just to get the math aspect down better.
Good. Yeah, thank you. I will make the webinar available. It'll probably be, later today or tomorrow.
Perfect.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay. Thank you all for coming, and keep precogging.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Oh,
Thank you, Marty.
I will not end it. I'm just going to turn off the recording.